Right, let's talk about light. We'll be covering temperature of light, light sources, sharp versus soft light, and how to light things. Today, we happen to be underneath neon bulbs, or fluorescent as they're called in this country. They're about 4,000 Kelvin. What does Kelvin mean? Kelvin means a certain warmth of light. Lower Kelvins, below 5,000, are usually considered warm. So things like candlelight, things like incandescent halogen bulbs, sunrises, and things like that. Things above 5,600, which is bright daylight coming from the sky, are considered to be cooler. Cool light sources can be ultraviolet bulbs, the sky, and things like that. Now, why does that matter? If you start mixing light sources, you're going to get a very interesting effect happening. You're going to see like a yellowing to a bluing effect on your videos, which makes video editing a little bit difficult. Even photography. I mean, I'm sure we all shot an indoor scene one day when there's a window open and half the photo is yellow and by the window it's blue. So you correct for the blue, that thing goes super yellow. You correct for the yellow, by the window goes super blue. There's the effect of mixed lighting. Now you can correct that by individually masking out sections and doing a fade and slowly correcting it, but it's a lot better to get it right the first time. So for example, if you're going to shoot a video, make sure all your bulbs are the same Kelvin temperature. Usually that's between 4,000 and 5,600. Now, if you are going to shoot outside, bear in mind that direct sunlight is about 5,600 and you need to use similar lighting. But really, if you're shooting outside, you should just be using a reflector and reflecting the sunlight. It makes it a lot better and a lot more consistent. Now let's go into the next complication. Light, all light sources are also not equal. Now, for example, above us today, as I said, we have fluorescence. Fluorescence have a very interesting frequency. This is blue, this is red, this is green. Fluorescents have a very sharp, well in this case neons, spike in green color. What does that mean for us? It means, if you guys can only see the green chairs in this room, that the green chairs will be extra green. The rest of the spectrum will be a little bit suppressed. Now, even in the shadows of this place, you can see there's a slight green tinge to things. And for human skin, that is bad news, because there is no such thing as a saying, he glowed green with health. Green is usually associated with illness. So when you're shooting under neons, you need to correct for the green color, which can get a little bit complicated, especially if the old neon bulbs are from an older generation, which they are even more greener. Now, the next one we can discuss is tungsten halogen bulbs. I'm sure we all been in the theater and we've seen that the actors are a little bit yellow. The reason being, a lot of the old theaters, well, I mean theaters many years, use halogen bulbs. Those particular bulbs grow, or not halogen, tungsten. Those particular bulbs, a lot of their power comes in the red to yellow range over here. So that means if you have something that is reddish, like human skin for example, it comes up pretty good. If you're trying to light something that is not red, like for example on the other side of the spectrum, like on blue, it's not going to look that good. Honestly, it's going to look kind of washed out. But hey, horses for courses. If you're shooting people, skin colors are going to be great. Right. Let's discuss. Let's take this one. Let us discuss now CFL bulbs. A are kind of similar to neons, but those are the old power savers that you used to plug into sockets to replace our old incandescent bulbs. They're a little bit better than the neons. They still got a spike here, but they do have, oh my goodness, I was there for a squeak. They do have some light in the red. Now, as you can see, if you're trying to light something that's got colors across the spectrum, each one of these is not going to really be the best. Because if you use tungsten incandescents, you're going to be missing this part of the spectrum. If you're using neons, you're going to have a hell of a lot of green. If you're using CFLs, you're going to be better, but you're going to have missing bits of the light frequency range. Meaning, if this is not lit by the light source, you will not really see it on the object. Sure that a lot of you out there have lit objects with colored lights, like a blue light, like a red light, and you'll notice that anything that is not red actually starts going blacker or muddy colors with that. So think of Christmas lights. Now, modern LEDs are quite good. Modern LEDs have a spike here, and they have a lot of power in the other bit of the range. Meaning, yes, it's going to be a little bit strong on the blues, but not as overpowering as some of these other things. And it does light throughout the whole range, almost. So that means that if you've got an item with multiple beautiful colors, flowers, anything else you can think of, they're going to come out and look a lot better. Now, let us look at the ultimate light source, the sun. Let's choose the red now. The sun lights almost all colors evenly except for blue. The sun is the weakest in blues, but it's still better than all other light sources. That is when, if you want to see the true nature of something, you need to take it in sunlight. And a lot of the old painting masters actually only painted via sunlight because it rendered the colors beautifully. So now when we actually look at the artworks in art galleries, we're actually doing a bit of a disservice to it because we don't see the true range of colors. And yes, sometimes the colors do fade over time. Do we have any questions?
Combination?
Well, this brings us to color temperature. A lot of these things have a very different color temperature. Halogens and tungstens are very yellow. If you use it in combination with an early LED, for example, which I haven't drawn here, is essentially what happens is you're going to have one side blue, one side orange. So essentially, you're better off choosing one lighting source that's going to serve you well than mixing light. Can you mix light? Of course you can, but then you have to do color corrections, you have to do fades across the image. Or it may just be arty and have one side blue and one side yellow and say, to hell with it all, this is what it is. We're back with more lighting examples and my favorite section, recycling. I'm a great recycler. I recycle computers, I recycle lights, I recycle cameras, and I love to give something life to what was thought once as rubbish. Now, this is a tungsten light over here. Essentially, I rescued this from a guy that's throwing it away. This is used in theater productions, and it's a very yellow light. So we are going to switch it on. Boop. And you can see on the camera. And I'm hoping you can see on the camera. Perfect, thank you. In fact, why don't we go like that? There you go. You can see, guys, that it is quite a yellow light over here. You can see the light is yellow, which is a great contrast to what it was beforehand, a light greenish black. This is because the yellow of this light overpowers the LED lamps, the LED, the neons above us. This is an example of a light source for nothing. I got this for free, and it light stands as well. Next, we're going to be moving on to halogen lights. Now, again, these are being thrown away. This is a far brighter light than the previous one. This is called a flood light. That one was a spot lamp. Oh, I'm going to get blinded by this. There you go. Now the drawback of this light is, if you ever worked with it, well, you can cook an egg on it. In summer it's not so good, but in winter, I'm telling you, we lit a whole hole of these things once, and it was nice and toasty. You'd see what the electrical bill for it was afterwards, because each one of these uses about 1,000 to 2,000 watts per hour. And this also provides a much softer light than the previous one. The cost of this particular unit, if you do have to buy it, about $9 from the shops. And that's just a basic tripod that we attached it to using a screw. Now, if you were trying to buy 2,000 watts of power from Amazon to light your videos, that would be a lot more dearer than £9 from Toolstation. And also, these lights provide huge power. It's actually amazing. But in the long run, they're going to eat you through electrical costs. Now, this is an actual professional piece of equipment. Why do you know? Peter doesn't just use junk. Well, mostly. It was repaired. This is an LED lamp. It is powered, and it's got a variable output. Now, why is this so important? When you're shooting video, sometimes to light a person's face properly or body, you do not need a lot of power. In fact, if you put that big old yellow light on a person, as you saw with me earlier, my face was way overexposed. It was killed. So to prevent that, you either have to move that lamp back, way back, or you get a lamp with the ability to change brightness. Let me quickly point it up above me. Right, now, unlike the other lamps that we saw earlier, this is a blue light. It is about 5600. Now, as you imagine, if you combine this with the flood lamp, there you go. Colleen, is it high enough? Good. Combine this with the flood lamp, you're going to see a very interesting effect happening. Let's see that the shadows are now blue, and that the background is now, and that the bright bits are yellow. This is what I mean about mixing light. If you get this may be a really cool effect to try, I'm sure, but if you get this in someone's face, it's going to get really hard to correct for. I'm not saying you can't do it. There's some wizards out there, but for the rest of us mere mortals, if you get the lighting done right, you can finish quickly and go and have lunch. Right, done. Now I'm going to show you guys some real DIY stuff. All right, guys, as I said, I love recycling. I love building things. This is a fun project you can do with your kids or with whoever, your friends, and make some fun lights. This are bog standard LED light strips, which are controlled via your phone through Bluetooth. Now, this would have been considered black magic just a couple of years ago. But here we are, remote controlling our lights quite easily. And this has got all sorts of wonderful effects, and it's what we would consider a soft light source. The reason being, there is many points of light, but there is a screen over it. So you hold it up, you can see that it's actually quite a quite an interesting effect here. Now, of course, you can do all sorts of silly things like we love doing. It could be, you go for the police effect, or you can go for alien mothership effect. This setup here cost $5. 2 of these strips, they went special. And now you can achieve special effects in your own home. The reason why this is so effective is it's got many points of light and a diffusion screen over it. Sharp versus soft light relates to the size of the light versus the size of your target. So when you do macro photography of bugs, well, the bugs are kind of small, and if you use your flash on your camera, it's actually bigger than the bug, and the light wraps around the bug or the small item you videotape you're photographing. Well, you can't videotape the flash. The reason is when you shoot a human or something bigger than the flash point, the flash light, the light source is a small light source in the object you are photographing, videotaping. It creates shadows, very sharp shadows, which has a place. Soft light has a place. For humans, generally speaking, sharp lights are less flattering than soft light. But at the same time, too much soft light reduces the characteristics of a face. You need to strike a balance. This is sharp light. I'm probably blown out completely. But you can see the sharp shadows on my face. This is now soft light. I should be a lot less blown out, and the light should be a lot nicer. What's the difference? The difference is that the light is now hitting this piece of plastic, and this piece of plastic thus becomes the size of the light source. If I move it closer, the light hits it at a bigger radius, and it becomes even softer. If I bring closer, not too close because it's plastic and it's a damn hot lamp, it becomes smaller and the shadows increase. So if you want to have things with shadows, things with detail, use a sharp light. If you want to have soft light, use diffused light. And I know there's going to be a question, what do I have in my hand? This is bog standard drop cloth for builders. We put this in a cardboard box in front of a light source. Supreme diffusion. You can also put several layers, and the more layers you have, the softer the light. Now, let's remove this heat generator here. You guys obviously saw this giant thing I had earlier. Well, this brings us back to hard light versus soft light. This is something that is double diffused. Now, why double diffused? Double diffused light is even softer light. You can see that the shadows are disappearing from the right side of my face. This is double diffused. There's actually a diffusion screen inside, and a diffusion screen. Can you see that, Colleen? And a diffusion screen in the front. This creates a beautiful, beautiful soft light for portraits, for people you like. Now, are there any questions from the audience? Yes.
How points of light? So you want the biggest point with the most diffusion, correct? For portrait light.
Well, the bigger your light source, the easier it is to diffuse. As we saw, although this was a point of light, really was actually a line of light more than anything, this thing, it was a hell of a lot more diffused than a theater light over there, because the theater light is a point. If your light source is already big, it's easier to diffuse. For example, like the sun. The sun is a point light source during midday. If it comes down, you get something called panda eyes. Your eyes are black, but everything else is exposed. Not a good look. But when we have the world's biggest diffusion screen, clouds, shadows tend to disappear. We also get a strange cast of color as well, but they do tend to disappear. Okay, oh, thank you very much. Now we covered hard versus soft light. Now we had our point brought up. What about backlighting? Backlighting is when you have light coming from the back. And when you shoot into backlighting, you get some really cool effects like a black silhouette sometimes. Now, when you do have to videotape something, record something into backlighting, you need to overpower the backlight a little bit. Yes, you can go into post-production, DaVinci, anything else, Adobe products, and tell it to boost the shadows a lot, because whatever is your target is that will be backlit will be considered shadows. What that does, though, is how it raises the noise in the subject you are recording. So essentially, what you need to do when you have our subjects backlit, you need to light your subject quite severely, just to overcome the difference in the backlighting and your subject. Now, also you can use this for dramatic effect. You have silhouettes, you can have wistful videos on the beach with a sunset, with someone kicking sand or whatever, and things like that. But the biggest thing that's impacting your video quality there is the fact that your dynamic range of the camera is not great enough to capture the detail of the person that's in shadow and the bright highlights coming in from the backlighting. Does that explain it?
Yeah. And how do you, so what would you advise in terms of lighting that subject?
Right. Now, midday lighting, midday sun is about 5,600 Kelvin. So you would end up using like the big Neva dome that we had to light it. You possibly need more than one depending on the brightness of the light. If you're shooting something in dusk or dawn, you're going to be using something that's a lot warmer, like 2000 Kelvin. Probably the big old halogen lamp will do the trick. So I would like to do a reddish light source, tungsten or halogen. If the light is really coming at you, like really at sunset, what I would do is I would get this wonderful, wonderful piece of equipment. And I would not necessarily use the golden side, I would use the white side, and I would reflect it back into the person that you're videoing or photographing. Thus, taking the sunlight back into it, into the subject, which will be a lot better because the color temperature will be. You're not reflecting it quite at me. There you go. Yeah, it's because my assistant is a little bit short, so she can't peer over it. But there you go. Now take it down, Colleen. Put it back up. Yeah, now you can see, thank you very much. You can see that the color temperature was matched on my face with the thing behind me. The advantage of this is, of course, that you don't need to color correct afterwards. So that's how you would correct for backlighting. Alternatively, you can just use that and blast it at the face with a big diffusion screen in front of it. Please remember, halogens and tungstens are really warm. So if you want to diffuse with anything, make sure it's far away, and please don't use any plastic. But if you do and there's something interesting happens, send me a video. Have you ever seen those YouTube videos where in the background you get a red and a blue and like merge beautifully? Now that is a white wall behind it. I often wondered how the hell did they do that? What it is, it's quite simple. They have LED panels, expensive ones on either side, and it's set to one to red and one to blue, and it does a merging. And it looks really nice, doesn't it? The reason being because red and blue are they complementary or opposite colors, red and blue? Anyways, I'm not light scientist, but they look good behind you. So yeah, it's quite nice. So like orange and green as well. It's another color combination. And interestingly, if you're into photography, if you really want to make your photos look really, really, really good, in your photo editing suite, you mask out the person you're photographing, you make them a little bit orange, whereas the background, you make it a little bit blue. What it does is it gives like a magazine look. It's actually quite nice. So yeah, I use this stuff all the time on professional photo shoots. Great fun. How does that look? Too much light? Okay. Now we have essentially a window here. Now we're going to create a practical light coming from above. There we go. We're going to go for a bit of an angle like this. Putting it on a table would be the right idea. Right, so this is just a lamp above. And then we're going to simulate a computer as well in my hand. All right. Is this yellow, this side? Good. This side's blue. And now we're going to be playing on an iPad. You guys see it on my face now?
Yes.
If I had your glasses on, there would be a definite reflection. And there you go. I set them at a slightly off rhythm. How does it look, Colleen? Of course, you go. No. The trick is, and also doesn't look good because it's a small light source than this. This is a bright light source, wide light source. So it wraps around my face. Exposed all right? Good. This is how you build a scene. You'd have a pretend window over here with two yellows. This would indicate that you're either in morning or late afternoon. This is a standard LED lamp. And this is my iPad 56 in my hand over here. It's about 32 inches. iPad. So that is how you would build. You see, of course, you'd also usually get yourself a bit of a hair light. Something like from the top. Now, what is the purpose of the hair light? That's an interesting question. One which I often thought, but I never got an answer to. Maybe I don't watch enough YouTube. Who knows? The purpose of the hair light is to separate you from your background. Now, I have pretty dark hair, and during my last presentation, I had a pretty dark background. If I had a hair light, I would get a beautiful separation. If I was blonde, I would not have this problem with a black background. But since I'm not, it's essentially, when you build light, you're just trying to make yourself contrast. You're trying to separate your subject from the background. Like right now, because the light's coming this way, I'm lit a bit more brightly than the background. I hope. Is that right, Colleen? I mean, I don't see the monitor. I'm just flying by my seat of my pants here. Essentially, the hair light, let's use this as a really cheapo DIY hair light over here. Like that. See, it lights up my hair. It separates you from the background. Of course, you put out a shot, of course. Yeah. Yeah, absolutely. There's a darker background. You would definitely need separate. Other people know, Colleen could be on any single background and she would stand out because of her beautiful red hair. Maybe not red background. But yeah, are we still getting sound over there? Oh, excellent. I just knocked my mic off. Now, is this the kind of thing you want to know for your presentations?
So it's one way, it's effectively whatever light sources you've got, you get rid of those and then you build it up how you want it. So if that was actually a window, one thing, would you keep it or would you block off the window and then start so you can?
Well, this is the thing. It depends what you want to do, really, right? If you want to shoot a video which has the same kind of look over and over, you put black garbage bags with tape over the window and never use it again in your life. But if you want a more naturalistic interview kind of thing, So you just sit here, and then you want to, as you talk to them, you want the colors to become redder and redder as they're discussing the emotional content of their life, and you have just one little practical and one little hairline, then leave the window be. It's all about what you want to achieve, really. I mean, if you want to go for a clinical hospital look, you make sure all the lights above you are small light sources, so everyone has harsh shadows. It's dramatic. If you want to be more wistful, yes, Colleen. Ah, yes, that's a fun subject, right? As you want to be wistful, you go for softer lighting. You go and do photo shoots at sunset, sunrise. Can't convince me to get up for sunrise, but yeah, sunset I'll be there, and because the light is coming low, and it's beautiful and golden. Alternatively, you can just use the gold reflector. It works great. You can cheat a little bit, especially in overcast weather. Now, diffusing a window. You can diffuse a window using gels, which are big rolls of plastic, essentially, which have certain light absorbing qualities. And essentially, you get them in grades, and you apply to the window how much you want to reduce the light by. Or hear me out, there is a much cheaper, much easier solution to all of this. You're going to support the local economy, you go down to your Builders Express and you get some of these. Now, when you actually spread them out, this is like quadruple on top of it. This is like 4 layers over here. If you actually get a single layer out, it doesn't actually cut out that much light. So if you're having trouble with outside lights, you put a few layers of this, and it's like getting a neutral density gel. And it's also damn cheap. This whole roll, 50 meters, is like 4 quid. Neutral density gel's a little bit more than that. But that's how I would go about doing it. So I'm guessing you do a lot of presentations for university and stuff like that, right?
But they're very much desk.
Yes. Well, if you're going to do a talking head, right, you don't want people to be distracted by the passage of time, right? You don't want to be talking using a window as a light source and then some truck parks in front of your house. I don't know, configuration of your house or something like that. Or the clouds come over and then your white exposure and your white balance, your light exposure and your white balance are then offset completely. You don't want that. You rather do something like that, get something like this, or be a real commander, get about 8 of these. Stick them up on your wall and create a faux window that you can control the brightness whenever you want. 8 of these will cost you like $40. Load them up, put them in strips on your wall, put a little bit of diffusion on it, and there's your window right there. You don't need to worry about God or tornadoes or anything else. So they'll take care of that quite nicely. It also depends on what camera you're using. DSLRs are better than demonstrators. Right, let's talk about inverse square law. It essentially means that the fall off from light is not directly proportionate to how far it is directly proportional how far it is, but it's not a straight line. It's more like an exponential graph. So if you increase the distance from your face of the light twice, you're not getting only half the light. You're getting 1/4 of the light. Then you quarter it again and quarter it again. That's why a light over here, it's actually doing something here, isn't it, Colleen? Let's move it here. And it didn't actually move it that far away. That's because light spreads as well. And that is essentially, the further your light is away from you, the further, you have to always assume that you're going to lose it by a factor of 4 rather than just halving the light as you put it further away. It is a bit of a difficult concept to grasp because, especially when I started flash photography, I'll put the flash close, boom. I'm like, no, that's about 4 times too bright. So I step back because I didn't know about flash power ratings on a flash gun. Zoom in. I'm like, it's too dark now. I have to go somewhere between. And by that time, my poor subject, sorry, Colleen, would have had more stars in front of their face than anything. because the flash, raw flash to the eyes is not a pleasant thing, especially a big one. But yes, that's the inverse square law for light. Hope I explained it. When I upload, I'm sure someone on YouTube comments will correct me. You can cut that.